For more on Trump's trade war tactics, we can cross to Manchester and bring in John Ashcroft, an economist for the Saturday Economist. John, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Now, Donald Trump, as we see here, he's back at it again. He's threatening the EU with this 50% tariff on imports. All of this after complaining that the pace of negotiations between the U.S. and the EU was moving too slow. We saw on Friday the markets didn't react well to this news. What can we expect that was going to happen now?
Well, that's a good question, and it's difficult, really, to keep up with the pace of change coming out of the White House and out of Donald Trump's mind specifically. It really is difficult to try and keep pace as he changes his mind on flip-flops on issues relating to tariffs or the iPhone or this, that, and the other. So really, we don't really know what is going on. We don't know what's going to happen next. We can only surmise that this is just a great tactic to try and get the EU to reach a deal which is going to be satisfactory to the UK, to the USA.
Now, we saw there the EU sort of feeling a bit disrespected, I think caught a little bit by surprise by this. The European Union's trade chief said that the bloc is committed to securing a trade deal, but it's to be based on respect and not threats, and that they're ready to respond. So, are we setting up ourselves again for another round of tit-for-tat tariff increases?
Well, again, it is rather difficult to know. If you're in a negotiating team with the Americans at the moment, is what exactly do they want? Because whether it's 10% today or 25% or 50%, the rules keep changing or the regulations keep changing according to what comes out of Trump's mind, really. And in some ways, he has to grab the headlines after the embarrassing situation with the president of South Africa this week. Then he has to try and reclaim the starlight to himself. And by announcing a 50% tariff and 25% tariffs on iPhones, then he's back in the lead and he can hold the tension and see where we go from here. But we're in the path of mutually assured destruction. As economists, we don't like tariffs. We don't like tariffs at 5 and 10%. We certainly don't like them at 50% or 135%, because this is the path to destruction. It damages both the American economy and it damages the economy of the EU and of China. So we just don't like tariffs. They won't achieve what Trump thinks they will achieve. And Peter Navarro, who's an advisor on this matter, is leading the president well astray. So again, it's in the path of the gods. We have to hope there will be a solution soon. But generally, it's looking very tricky to negotiate with Trump at the moment.
It's true what you mentioned there. It's hard to negotiate when you're not sure what the end goal is, and it does seem like Trump likes to kind of move the goalpost. Now, the EU is one of Washington's largest trading partners. They spend more than $600 billion in goods last year, and they buy more than $370 billion worth of U.S. goods. Now, from that previous round of tariff trade wars, the U.S. capped a 25% tariff against EU steel and aluminum. Maybe can we expect targeted tariffs for set categories like we saw with the steel?
Well, again, it's difficult to understand what the objective is. We know that the EU is particularly worried about the export of cars, particularly German cars, automobiles, as well as pharmaceuticals and other things. So it's what is the objective he's really trying to achieve? It's trying to understand the mindset of the team across the desk when you're doing negotiation. And trade negotiations are incredibly difficult. You know, there's 5,000 items to go through, and to try and achieve a settlement by the beginning of June or even by July is going to be a real challenge, because the rules change and we don't know what they're trying to achieve, because tariffs won't achieve what Trump thinks they're going to achieve. And that's the real problem for negotiators.
And I mean, as you mentioned, trade war is not good for either side. I want to ask you one final question. What sort of impact is Trump's announcement likely to have on other countries that are also attempting to negotiate trade deals with the U.S.?
Well, it's going to make them very concerned, again, about what is wanted from them as a supplier into the U.S. economy. And they'll all be looking at ways of diversifying the risk. We can see it now with even the EU looking to develop trade partners outside of the US, China specifically making big strides to expand trade in Asia, as well as stimulating the domestic economy. So they're going to, once you threaten like this, then it puts other nations on hold. And they begin to look at what would the risk be if this lunacy continues in the way it does, because it really cannot continue. It's just so disruptive. It makes businesses unsure, uncertain, unwilling to invest, and unwilling to take on more labor workforce. So it's a real problem. And they're all going to look to what is happening and look at how they can diversify the risk away from the USA.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. That's John Ashcroft for the Saturday Economist.